Nobody tells you how to price your clothing products. You search online, you try to find industry standards, and eventually you just end up looking at your competitors and guessing what the price should be. But guessing will deplete your profits faster than almost anything else in this industry. You are an independent apparel founder. You probably feel like you're shooting in the dark every time you're going to set an apparel price. Today, we are changing that. I'm going to show you exactly how profitable clothing brands actually price their products and why they never rely on a gut feeling. I'm Rachel Erickson, and I help emerging apparel founders build the financial structure that they need to scale and grow profitably without giving up a single penny of equity. One of the most common things I hear from you is, there aren't a lot of places where I can go to actually find out what my margins should be, and nobody's telling me the right numbers. And you are not wrong. This is totally true. The fashion industry actually loves to keep its numbers hidden. But big brands aren't out there relying on intuition or magic. Here is exactly how big brands create the apparel prices for their collections. And I'll tell you right now that it's not super glamorous. They use spreadsheets, clear margin goals, and educated data on what their customer is willing to spend on the clothing at their brand. They also clearly know the difference between their pricing and all of their competitors' pricing so that they can choose the right price for their target customer. Today, we're going to walk through the 3 core principles that you need to price your clothing without killing your profit. Now, the first and most common mistake that I see you make is what I call the competitor trap. When you don't know how to price a new hoodie or a new dress or any other product in your line, you look at a brand that you admire, or maybe a competitor that shares your target demographic, and you just copy their price. But here's why that is incredibly dangerous. You never know what's going on behind the scenes at that company. You don't know their raw material costs, you don't know the freight rates that they negotiated, their order volumes, or how much they're paying their team. That brand you admire might actually be operating at a major loss just to acquire customers. Or they might have negotiated a manufacturing discount that you don't have access to. Pricing should never be a direct comparison to what other brands are doing. If you copy their price tag, you might accidentally be copying a negative profit margin. Big brands do not copy. They look at their own internal data and then make decisions intelligently based on that. Now, before we break down the exact numbers that you should be using, I want to share a quick resource with you. If you feel like your brand's growth has stalled and you are constantly guessing on things like pricing, inventory, and ideal margin goals, I put together a free growth audit checklist just for you. It walks through the first 10 steps that I would do inside your brand if you hired me as your COO. You can download it for free right now at the link in the description. Now that brings us to the most important takeaway of this entire video. Pricing must be based on a target margin goal, not on an instinct and not on a guess. And what does that actually mean? It means that you need to have margin goals before you can start setting any of your pricing. You also, in order to calculate that margin, need to know exactly what each unit costs to produce, ship, store, and market. Let me give you a real-world example of how powerful this shift in thinking can be with a client that I personally visited a couple of years ago. A women's cycling brand came to me talking about how they had plateaued at their company for over a year. They were making about $1 million every year, super healthy gross revenue, but they couldn't break through that plateau, and they couldn't understand why. I was out in the world talking a ton about a process called SKU rationalization, where we go through line by line of your entire collection and assign a rational reason for every single piece to be in it. If there isn't a rational reason, we then look at the line and decide what needs to be dropped and removed. I spent 2 days in their office. We went through every single piece in detail. What was the name of it? How was it structured? Did the collection pyramid make sense at their company? Was the pricing right? Could it be higher? Did we need to lower it? How did the garments fit the body? Was the construction quality good enough for their target avatar? We left no stone unturned when it came to their entire assortment of apparel, and they had hundreds of items. But it all started with looking at their margins. The items that came in under their margin goal were automatically flagged for immediate review. The items that were in a safe zone got a different lens. And by the end of that 2 days together, they had an entirely new assortment. Several items had come out. We decided to add a few more items over the next year. And 12 months after that visit, I can very proudly announce that they hit $2.2 million. When you start with your margin goals and then you look at pricing and then you look at everything else about your line, that is how you make the smartest decisions at your company. It will give you the hierarchy on a spreadsheet right in front of you. Now, the third principle is about aligning your pricing with your actual business goals and your customers' data. Big brands use educated information and true data about what their customer is willing to spend. I hear from our board members all the time, I don't want to be the next Nike. That's not my goal. And I completely get that. I agree. Most independent apparel founders would rather run a $500,000 company that pays them a salary of $100,000 a year than run a multi-million-dollar company while they take home no paycheck. To achieve that kind of financial autonomy, your pricing structure has to support even your salary. It has to support all of your operational costs. You cannot just pick a price for every garment because it sounds fair to the customer if it is going to bleed your company dry. You have to understand your specific customer's perceived value of your brand and then anchor that against the established margin goals that you set in step 2. Pricing your apparel doesn't have to be a guessing game that keeps you up at night. So if you are now wondering what a healthy margin actually looks like for your brand, I broke down the exact direct-to-consumer or D2C and wholesale margin targets here. Why trying to guess a good margin is costing your brand thousands. Watch that video next.